Coffee. I'm so excited about it. I feel like a whole new person. Um, that's all I can say is that I feel like a whole new person. Super grateful. Again, I can't express enough how grateful I am for the individuals that showed up to pray. Your power is magnificent and so strong, and I can't even describe how amazing I feel. I literally was able to get up, get ready this morning, and actually look presentable. And I have a sweater, leaves and lattes. So there you go for the spring, for the the fall, and because we love coffee. I love coffee. Okay, so let's get started. It's been crazy, right? It's been interesting. There's again, I think when all of this stuff happened, this, let's say, the coronavirus and the president elect and election and all of these things that were going on. I talked about this, I don't know, years ago. I talked about it, but as soon as Trump was even in office, I was saying that we will see sort of the, I want to call it the extremity, but the over exaggeration of polarities, meaning us versus them, the black and white, and really looking at the polarities. Now, do they exist? No. Really, it's designed that way for us to remember to unify under, one umbrella. Now, is the unity actually happening? I mean, there's arguments in both ways. We could say, no, unity's not happening. We're seeing more and more and more disconnect and polarities starting to arise, especially now with the election, right? That's causing more polarities. Or we could say, no, we're unifying under what human conditions. We're coming together and we're saying, we're all human, we're going to come together. But if we look at it, it's still very polarized. Very polarized. And it's polarized so that we can remember that we are one. So it's kind of looking and starting with yourself, right? We can't, basically, you can't stop what's to come, right? We can merely accept what's to come. And what can we do to support ourselves for what's to come? We support ourselves, right? The internal first. It starts with the you internally and what that looks like. Are there polarities still that exist within you? Are you still allowing yourself to live with us versus them? Or internally, do you have these conversations in your mind where you're going, it's me versus you, kind of back and forth, right? Do you have that happening? Okay. And if you have that happening, right, you then you're going to see it on the external. So right now we're struggling internally on, the polarities within us. And so it's looking at that, because as within, so without. And the only way to heal this, right, is to heal internally with yourself and your family. So in your family, asking yourself, am I seeing this sort of separation between families, or the separation between the individuals that are showing up in my life? Is there that separation? Because if there is that separation, then it's like, how do I support this dynamic so that we can then see it happen on a bigger, larger scale? Good morning. I don't know who's on here. Say good morning if I don't say your name, because I sometimes don't get to see who's on here anymore. It's not like it used to be. I do pull up Facebook from my stream just so I can see. I love saying good morning to people, and I love saying hi to people. I feel like it's the one way I could connect. It was my outlet to learn how to connect with people. Excuse me. So, learning how to bridge the gap between what we feel like are two extremities within us, the two extremes. And they call it the sacred feminine and masculine. You can call it whatever. They call it intuition, or, and then they call it logic and reason. And they have the two sides of the brain, and one operates this way, one operates this way. And it's cool because I'm getting back into the quantum physics realm, especially with my master's program, which I'm super excited about. I love my class, my paradigms of consciousness. Why? Because My professor literally spent the entire lecture on quantum physics, which for me is, I love to nerd out to that kind of stuff. Um, and so, even in the quantum world, there's sort of see that there's maybe this sort of what we think is a duality, right? When we even talk about like the microcosm, when we look at the tiniest particles or cells or whatever you want to call them, the electrons and the neutrons and the way that they're behaving and all of that stuff, is that they behave in almost this dualistic sort of way as well, where we have, hey Betty, how are you? Funny, I was watching the video and I thought it was Spirit and Coffee, so I put the morning. It was your video last night. Yeah, yeah. I'm going videos everywhere now. Video on my personal page, video on Spirit and Coffee, video all over the place. I'm just throwing up videos everywhere. um, so in the quantum realm, what we see is this sort of quantum understanding, which is, it's kind of like the easiest way that I could describe it for maybe people to understand is like, I believe that our dream world is like the quantum world. So if you have dreams, and if you ever remember your dreams, you know that anything is possible within your dreams. It's like this crazy experience. Sometimes you're in two places at once, or all of a sudden you're just warped to this other space. It's almost like we're in Star Trek when we're in our dreams. We could just do anything. Like there's whole worlds that are created that don't even make sense sometimes, right? We're like, what? I don't even really understand what I'm seeing at this time in my dreams. And that could be like the quantum world. But then we get to the tangible physical world when we wake up and everything feels very material, right? And we were talking about the probability of being able to walk through the wall. Mathematics, the quantum world, all of that tells us that it's probable for us to walk through the wall, but the probability is so small that it's probably not going to happen, because we feel life as a material world, as a solid. And so are we going to walk through the wall? But then we have these things that happen. And, there was a thing that happened to me, and I've told you guys about it, with the fork disappearing, where you don't have an understanding. I asked my professor, I said, look, I had this happen. How would quantum physicists, how would classic physics describe scientifically what happened? Could there be an explanation? And the only explanation that they could come up with is probability. The fact that if we calculated it from the quantum perspective, that it's probable for the fork to have disappeared, because it could be in many locations at once, based on what we know about quantum physics. So what does quantum physics say? Quantum physics says that everything can exist everywhere all at once, and that you don't know where it's at until you have locality, right? There's non-locality, but it doesn't come to locality. In other words, we can't, until we look at this spoon, it's not going to materialize until we look at it. But the reality is it's still there. If I leave the room and come back, is it still there? Well, yeah. But why? Because when we look at particles, they're not there. Anyway, this gets into some kind of, it's complex and confusing, and even the physicists don't understand it. And I can tell you, I don't understand it. There's no explanation for it, but it's a probability. When we look at it mathematically, the probability's there. So why am I talking about this? Okay. The reason I'm talking about this is because we have the ability to manifest, okay? We have the ability to manifest, and people are always constantly like, well, how do we manifest in the world? How do we materialize things? How do we, and then they do something like The Secret, or they do all of these workshops that tell them how to materialize, and they want $1 million, and they want to materialize this big house or trips or whatever it is that they're trying to do in their life. We do have the power. Now, it does take, for me, it takes faith, and I believe in God, and that's part of it for me. Okay. Now there's people that don't believe in God, and I'm not telling you what to believe in either way. I personally believe in God, and I believe in the universe, right? This platform is about love, as you guys know. But the universe itself is too weird for us to say that we are the creators of this. We don't understand it, right? Even scientists don't understand it, right? Nobody really understands it. The only thing that we can know is ourself and understand ourself. And so the internal world, understanding our internal world, which we can go our whole life with never understanding. Some people don't even look at their internal world. Some people just, who cares? I'm just not going to care about the internal thing. But the internal world is the universe that exists within us, right? Is the most important thing to try to understand, not the external, because on the internal, we have this sort of emotion that arises, this feeling that arises, the consciousness that arises, and then we're able to focus in on the things that we want to see in our life. But if we don't understand ourselves internally, how can we focus on the external? Well, we don't even know what to focus on. So it can be this chaos on the external. The material world looks like this big blob of I don't know what, and you're trying to figure out why you're so overwhelmed, and it's because everything's everywhere and you don't even know what to focus on. But that's because you're not understanding that the internal world is the most important world to look at. Internally, what's happening inside, right? And I mean with your thoughts and your emotions, right? And how do you rectify? Maybe they don't talk to each other, but maybe they dance with each other. Maybe they sort of move each other around in this way instead of coming together and uniting. Maybe it's just a dance where one goes this way and that way, and they're just sort of two forces coming together to try to balance out. And that's what we're doing, perhaps. Okay, let me see what Betty said. Now, I don't tell people things sometimes that happen to me because I believe they'll think I'm not all there. The other night I was having a nightmare, and I believe it was my guardian angel whispered out loud to me, Betty, and I woke up. Not the first time I hear her. Oh, yes. Oh, I'm hearing voices. Yes, I've actually, Betty, you're not crazy, and I love that you share, and I love that people share. And why? Because I've had these things too. And I'm okay with sharing them. And if people want to call me the crazy lady, well, that's okay. I don't mind being like Einstein at the end of the day and having hair big like this, because people think I'm crazy. I'll have big, let me do my Einstein hairdo. Okay, there. Look. There. Now who's crazy? I don't really care. Oh God, life is fun. But yes, I actually hear I've heard voices as well, and we do, and I believe that that is God and the universe speaking through these energies that we may not understand. We cannot describe or explain certain things, and neither can science explain it. And so it frustrates them, right? It frustrates them because they want to have definite answers, and there is no definite answer. And I mean, we could get deeper into the sciences of why that is true for when we look at science. And that, again, it has to do with the quantum physics, which is mathematically the most precise form, that theory that we have that can explain what we're seeing as a phenomena in the real world. But but it's precise, but it goes against everything that we see and understand as the tangible material world, which is why Albert Einstein wasn't a big, huge fan of it per se, because he just felt like, I love it. We've been saying like God doesn't throw dice. He doesn't just throw dice, and that's what quantum physics tells us, that there's dice, and if till you focus in on the dice, it can't. Every possibility is there. So again, scientifically, it's provable, right? But we're talking here spiritual, and more of the mystical part of it, right? And then how do you? Good morning, Emmanuel. How do you take that mystical experience and create it in the physical world, make it something tangible? This is the art of manifestation, and I call it an art because it is an art, and it is an ability to paint your picture into the reality that you want to see. We can be the masterpiece, we can be the painter, we can have the canvas. The canvas is here for us to paint on, and that we can then mold and create and even build up what we want to see. How do we do this? We have to understand what it is that we want internally. If you're not clear about what you want, how in the world can the universe provide you the resources to get where you want to go if you don't know where you're going? It's like you get on the road and you're like, I don't know where I'm going. I mean, you can do that and you're going to end up somewhere. And that, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because there's nothing right, wrong, good, or bad. But if you're wanting to focus in on something in particular, for instance, I want to manifest a car. I want to manifest a car in my life. How do I do that? What does that look like? Okay, so getting very clear about it. Not clear about what kind of car you want, because that's what most people, I want a BMW that's blah 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 blah, or I want a Mercedes, or I want a truck, a Tundra, whatever it is. That's not what I mean. I don't mean getting clear about the color, and most people will say, well, get clear about the color, visualize it in your head. No, get clear about why the heck you want the thing to begin with. Why do you want it? For what purpose? Oh, well, I need a vehicle so that I can get from point A to point B. I have a job to get to, or my car's falling apart and it's not reliable and I travel. I want to use it to travel. Why do you want to travel? Well, I want to travel because I love feeling the freedom of the road, or this and that and the other. I want to support my family and experiencing these things and having fun. And this is what is it that you want? Why is it that you want that particular thing? Understanding that and understanding you internally. When you understand and then you put the two together, the universe will naturally fall into place to support you with that. And it's the same thing with goals. I have a new set of goals, and then how do I get to those goals that I want? Well, why am I doing the goals to begin with? That's called intention, right? How do we take this sort of soup or stew of stuff, right? Because it's like I'm going to use a soup example. We have carrots, we have celery, we have potatoes, we have all of these things to put into our stew, right? But we're like, I have this ingredient, so what am I supposed to do with it? So you're looking at, well, I think I want more celery than I do carrots, and I want more of this than that, and I'm going to cut the potatoes this way because I know that I want a more robust da-da-da-da-da, and you get clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer about it. Are those the ingredients that I need that are going to help me get there? They may not even be the good ingredients. Like maybe you need to add broth or something, or maybe you need to take something out, or maybe whatever it is. Maybe the starch in the potatoes ain't gonna help with whatever's going on. So understanding yourself, getting clear about what it is that you choose to have in your life, and digging deep down into why, for what purpose. That becomes looking at the sort of all possibilities are there, to really focusing in on certain things. Now, I loved what my professor said. Maybe I can get him to do a show with me one day. But he did talk about how when we start to focus in on something, the other thing sort of goes away. It sort of becomes chaotic. And when we focus on the chaos, the focus goes away. So again, it's the balance between the both. How do we remain flexible too, to change direction if needed? It's the both and I know that I don't know if this sounds like a lot or is like, what is going on? But it's the both and, right? We're looking at how do we maneuver between what is non-existent into what is existent. How do we bridge the gap between the two? How do we work and mold the two? And then do this dance where we're retweaking and we're understanding, we're getting clear about what we want, right? It's sort of like Spirit and Coffee. I started doing videos that were not Spirit and Coffee, but I love the idea of live videos. I love the idea of being live. I love the idea of engagement and being able to have people talk back to me through the social platforms, even if they were typing, or being able to tell them good morning and engage with them and hopefully support them with a message that would enrich their life in some way. I mean, for me, that was like my heart. And I didn't really understand. So I meddled with it at first, but I started something. And I did what I did. Number one, I said, okay, well, let me look and see what I can do. And I started doing these videos about health and wealth and what it meant to people. And I did interviews with people, and I would go places and we would just get on my phone and do a live video. It was not professional whatsoever, and it didn't matter to me. I was doing it because I had this love and passion for getting information out to people. I love to give information. I love to share information. I love to support people. And so this is my way of giving back. Now, as I started to hone in, I was kind of not consistent, right? I wasn't consistent in it. It was just every whatever. And then boom, it hit me. And then when I got the calling, right? It felt like a calling from God. Like, here's what you're going to do. I literally was like, oh, here we go. This is what I'm going to do. And I started, and then when I focused in on it and I triggered, and then it just started to grow. And then it became a voice podcast, right? Where I'm doing voice and live video at the same time. And then now I'm streaming, and I have nice equipment, and it's grown a little bit more, and it sort of just happened organically, grew into something else, right? Good morning, Anna. Right? And so it just a little at a time, it grew organically. But it was me getting clearer about who I am and what I want to do so that I can then share it with the world. So clarity is super important, but that doesn't mean you don't start. It just means that you kind of start and then you get clearer. And as you get clear, you become flexible, right? And in the flexibility is where you start to grow the experience. And as you grow the experience, you start to create more, and your capacity gets bigger. And as your capacity gets bigger, you start to recognize, like, oh, this is it. This is where I want to continue going. And at any time it needs to shift or change, you shift and change. I had a friend that a long time ago told me you should do a podcast, like an actual voice podcast. And for me, I was like, well, no, I do live videos. I was kind of resistant, but it's really because I didn't know how to do it, and I was kind of afraid. And then it happened. I looked into it, and I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. If I can reach more people, that's awesome. Like, I'm not going to sit there and promote it so that everybody could come to this, but as people come organically, that's great. People come and go all the time. This is not about, oh, I need to have 1 billion people. No. The right people will get the message when they're supposed to. And that's how I've always done this, right? It's like whoever comes and gets the message, awesome. Am I adding value back to people's life? So again, it's you being able to say, how do I do that in my life? And what is it that I want to create? So it's getting clear, understanding you. Like, I understand why I do Spirit and Coffee. I'm very clear about it. I understand what it's for. I understand how it functions, and I don't waver from the core values of what it is. Beyond that, it may morph into something different, right? It may look different on the external world. Again, we're bridging the gap between the quantum and the material, if that's how you want to see it. And the more that we focus on this, the less that we will see this polarity happening in the world. The universe itself is teaching us, is showing us that the split and the duality is an external construct of the internal world or dynamic that we have within us. What we see happening, especially in America right now, we see a lot of this polarity is happening. And it happens everywhere. And the reason it's so magnified right now, it's almost like we're looking at it through a magnifying, right? Or a glass. We're like, oh, look, we have red and blue. We have, everything is pulled apart. Who created that? We did. We created it. if you really look at what a democracy is, it's the people creating it. We created it. When we have the ability, good morning, Tony, to reunite under one umbrella. But that takes us reuniting internally, and then in our microcosm, which I'm talking about family, getting that family together and bridging the gap between that and allowing the unity to live within our own families. If we can't even start with ourselves, how are we going to start with our family? And then how are we going to start with the nation? We can't. I can't. You know what I mean? It's huge. And I understand. So I'm looking at myself saying, how do I bridge the gap in myself and bridge the gap in my family, right? So that we as a microcosm family sort of ignite the consciousness within other families. And as that starts to happen, then it starts to grow. And then more people step into the consciousness of that, and then the world starts to move that way, or the mindset starts to move that way. So it's almost starting from the internal to the external. And if you looked at every spiritual practitioner, every spiritual guide, anybody who's committed to the esoterics, anybody who's committed to the mystics, anybody who is committed to being, right, in a spiritual journey or on the path to enlightenment, you'll see this. They'll tell you it starts in you. It starts with you. You looking internally at your own internal universe. There's so much going on there. There's so much going on internally in us. And it's easier to focus on the external stuff that's happening because it's easier to point the fingers and sort of like push this blame on other people or whatever circumstances so that we don't have to look internally at how we're contributing to that. And so I look at myself, how am I contributing to the whole? What is it that I'm doing? Am I supporting? Am I causing more unity, and am I causing more polarity, or am I trying to unify myself internally so that I can unify people together? What is it that I'm contributing? How am I contributing back to the world? And how am I seeing that show up in other individuals? How am I seeing that show up on the bigger level, on the universal level? But it starts with me. I have to look internally in me. How is my quantum world working? How are my emotions working? How am I processing the uncomfortable situations or the dark emotions that I'm experiencing? Am I allowing myself to feel them? Or am I just denying that they exist? Those bigger questions are internal questions. No one can answer that for me, right? Just like no one can answer that for you. When you get clearer about this and you start to focus in and move towards that, guess what? You start to shift and see the world around you from a different lens, a different perspective. And when you do that and you're clear, then you can start to manifest on the external. This is something that I've understood as a child. I was able to understand how to manifest things, and I didn't know how I was doing it. I just had faith and trusted the process and knew. I just had this knowing. But there is a way to actually do it through a process, and everybody has the gift within them. Everybody. We all have this gift. Nobody's like more special than somebody else. Right? The people who are doing the work, people say, well, what makes them so special? Nothing. They're just doing the work, and it's not easy work. It's not easy to do this work. This work can literally make you go crazy if you're not allowing yourself spiritual guidance from someone. Like, I have guides. I even put a post today on Facebook. I was like, thank God for this village of people that I have, because I need a whole village to help me through this process. But as you go through the process, making sure that you are mentally, emotionally, physically ready for it, because people want $1 million right? You hear people, I just want to win the lotto. Oh, yeah? What are you going to do with that? You think your life's going to be better? Some people are worse off because you don't even know how to handle the small things. How can you handle these big things? When you know, it's like, how can you talk about this whole country being some way when you can't even handle the small things in your life? Look at the small things in your life, or don't. It's up to you, right? I have to look at the small things. Me, I'm like, oh God, I can't even handle this. How the heck am I going to handle that? I can't even do this, and how am I supposed to do that? So let me look at this tiny thing, this little piece, and let me get really good at that little piece, and then it makes a huge wave and an impact, not the other way around. Okay. And so I will say, and maybe get into this later, but people don't care what you know until they know that you care. In other words, it starts internally with this emotional state of being and understanding and recognizing that we are all in this together. That rather, it doesn't matter what political party you're a part of, it doesn't matter what family or this or that or whatever, because we are all connected to each other and we do impact each other in big ways. When we make a choice, it impacts all the people and it ripples out, and we don't even know where it goes to because it can ripple out beyond our own understanding. So we have this ability to have huge impacts. So it's just getting very clear. And once you get clear, so if you're wanting to manifest something, remember it's possible. But it's possible when we get clear about what it is that we want and why we want it. Simply put. Okay. What's the big why? And digging deeper and keep asking why. Ask why about 20 times. Because I want to look cool. Why do you want to look cool? Because I want people to like me. Why do you want people to like me? Well, because maybe I don't like myself. Why don't you like yourself? Well, because this. Oh, why? Why? And then you may realize that you didn't even want the thing that you were asking for. It was really that you wanted or that you needed to support you. And then you're like, oh, well, that's really it, not this. And then boom, it shows up and you're like, oh, boom, there you go, manifestation. That easy. Okay. So getting clear about yourself or don't. But there you have it. I'm so glad to be back and feeling like I feel so good, you guys. I just can't even, I feel like a whole new person. Like I shed this skin, almost like I was a snake and shedding my skin into something new, almost like the phoenix. It's like I had to burn down and re-rise from the ashes. And that's what I feel like's happening right now. Is re-rising from the ashes into something new. Will I ever be the same? No. I'm gonna be forever changed. And there's a lot of reasons why, and perhaps I'll share that story eventually. I will, because I tell you guys everything pretty much. Let's just say I tell you about 95% of everything. I keep 5% for myself. All right. So I love you guys so much. Have a great day. Go out there and just be the best you can be. Remember that you're magnificent, you're phenomenal, and that you have this beauty within you and you have this magnificence within you, that you can be anything you choose to be. And just dig deep, okay? So I love you guys, and of course I will be seeing you tomorrow. I'm super excited. I'm gonna start doing early morning ones because I finally have the ability to get up and feel well. So salud to you. Yum, 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 yum. Bye.